Hi, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Numbers. My name is Dave Bookbinder, and this is the program where we dig deeper to understand what really matters most in business. Today, I am really excited to welcome a guest who is recognized as one of the world's leading management thinkers and technologists. His name is Faisal Hoque. He's an award-winning entrepreneur. He's an innovator. He's a #1 Wall Street Journal best-selling author, and I can't be more excited to have him on the program today. Faisal, welcome to Behind the Numbers.
Thanks for having me.
We've got a lot to discuss today, but before we start, I'd like if you could maybe just fill in any of the pieces that I didn't touch on in that very brief introduction.
I am an entrepreneur. I've been always an entrepreneur. Started my entrepreneurship right out of my college days. And since then have had several companies. A couple of companies were extremely successful. A couple of the companies didn't do well at all. I raised money. I've built technology products, sold to Fortune 500, sold to government, and now I continue to do that journey. And writing has become a passion. So as I learn from the street, as they say, and also from research, I keep writing, and all the proceeds for the books goes to cancer research.
Yeah, that's amazing that the proceeds go to cancer research. I was going to touch on that, so thank you for bringing that up. So let's go into the Wayback Machine and talk about the early entrepreneurial journey, if we could. Like you mentioned, you built your first company at a tender age. How did that experience shape your entrepreneurial path?
Sure. I think, my entrepreneurial journey started because I was out of necessity. I was born in Bangladesh. I wanted to come to US, and my parents, who are a middle class family, engineer and homemaker, they wanted me to stay back home. I wanted to come here, but I didn't have any money, so I started selling stereo equipment and saved up some money. And that's kind of it started at age 14, 15. And by the time I landed in the US, I was 18, 19 years old. And then, so my entrepreneurial, exploration kind of started there. And it was very rough because I had no money. So I had to work at graveyard shift, while I was putting myself through college. But as I explore my computer science and electrical engineering and management science. By senior year, I built a software product, and I sent out this demo to a bunch of New England companies, and I started my career at Pitney Bowes. So post Pitney Bowes, I went to Dun and Bradstreet, stayed there a couple of years, and right after that, I started my first company, the official formal venture, which is a software business in middleware space. Within first couple of years, we were very successful. This was on the, it was basically a middleware product that run on TCP/IP backend. That's basically your internet. So I started my software technology business at that time, and I was looking for money, and GE Capital came along and scooped me up, and we started GE Capital's first business-to-business internet business. That was like late 90s, and that's basically my entrepreneurial career. Learned a lot, and since then I've done a few things right, also made tons of mistakes. And it's been, now it's, oh gosh, 30 years has gone by just like that.
Yeah, it does go by quickly. And when you talk about the mistakes, Faisal, a lot of business owners are fearful of making mistakes, but all the successful folks I've spoken to um, all talk about failure as the linchpin to successes. What
Sure.
would you say to the audience about failure and how they should be reframing that, perhaps?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's nothing wrong with failure and setbacks and adversity. It's all how you look at it, right? So, so in my case, I have had both professional upsets and personal upset, in the sense that my parents got sick. I have a child who has health crisis. So, and in terms of professional learning, I mean, I had success in very early stage. It was rough going initially because I came from where I came from and got started all by myself. But I had success pretty quickly, and that made me very arrogant.
Mm.
If anything had to take back from that learning experience, I wish I was much more mature at that, like I am now when I was in my early 20s, right? So which everybody says that, but you don't realize that at that time. And also you kind of don't realize how much you need a ecosystem and a dependence on other people, and you kind of have to let it kind of uh, blend and kind of take it, accept the journey on the flow. At early stage of my career, I didn't realize that I was too much of a hurry, and you heard pretty much every entrepreneur says that, whether that's super human beings like Steve Jobs or a small business owner, they all say the same thing, right? So, like going with the flow and learning as you go and reflection, being mindful of how you conduct yourself and how you lead, those things are very important. And I think every failure that I have had taught me those lessons and made me a better leader, if I can say that, after all these years.
Yeah, and that's a great segue because we talk about leadership. I would love to get your thoughts on your assessment of how your personal leadership style has evolved over the years as you've learned and grown, and the successes and the failures, and especially when you talk about the technological changes that have happened over the years.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, one of the things that has happened that I've gone back to my very Eastern philosophical root. When I was young, I used to be a, a history and philosophy and kind of a literature buff, particularly, Eastern philosophical buff. And over the years, I had chance to travel all over the world, and so now my leadership style is this what I call the middle path. It's a kind of a taking a I'm not I'm very optimistic, but I'm also kind of focus on risk management at the same time, and I kind of try to follow this middle of the road. Like for example, if you look at AI as an example, which I've written about in my newest book, like there are these diehard people who believe that it's going to ruin our entire society, and there are diehard people who think that it's going to save the humanity. Right? It's neither one of them are really right. So my leadership style has boiled down to this middle path, and I try to kind of look at it in a balanced perspective. And I'm super optimistic, but I'm also very, kind of focus on what are the worst case scenario that can happen, and it reflects in terms of how I interact with my team, how I think about opportunities, how I go about my belief system, how I look at my customer, um, win loss, all of that. It kind of look at it from middle path point of view.
Yeah. And we talk about your new book. That's again a great segue because I do want to talk about that. You've written at least 10 number one bestsellers, and your new book, Transcend, was recently recognized as well. So congratulations on that. So in the book Transcend, you're talking about unlocking humanity in this age of artificial intelligence. So let me start by asking you, what inspired you to write this?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've seen this technological evolution throughout my career, and just like we were talking about my early days of entrepreneurship in the internet space, but I don't think we have seen, and we have seen this level of transformation that we're about to encounter because of artificial intelligence. What it stands for, meaning that we have never had technology that is already more kind of smarter than we are, right? So we have never had that kind of element. Part of the reason is that we looked at technology always as like a passive enabler that we use to do make us more efficient and automated, et cetera, right? And we have been using element of artificial intelligence for the last 10 plus years, whether that's your GPS or whether that's your like when you're being suggested to buy something. These are all algorithmic element of AI that has been around. Now, what really got me going on writing this book is I started really questioning about, okay, I mean, this technology has huge potential to do a lot of good, healthcare, making us better in terms of research, um, able to, enabling us to make better decision, et cetera, et cetera. But it also has huge potential for a lot of destructive things. That whether that's being utilized in geopolitical conflicts, or whether that's manipulation, or whether that's identity theft, you name it. We're already seeing many of these things, right? So I wanted to take a balanced approach, and I wanted to kind of enhance a framework, a business and personal framework that allows you to look at the opportunity for AI, but also kind of utilize ethics and governance to make sure that we are kind of guiding ourselves, whether to really make some human impact beyond just next profit quarter, right? So that's motivated me. And then other element is that I'm very interested in AI because of healthcare element of it, because I have a son who's a cancer survivor. So I'm constantly looking for what AI can do for diseases like that, right? So that kind of is both a professional or personal inspiration, which kind of got me going about 3 years ago. Then I put together a research team, and then we cranked it out in last 24 months or so. We just came out last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, amazing topic, and I'm so glad to have you as you're just currently announcing this new book and enjoying the success. The we'll call it the human experience as it relates to AI can mean so many different things to people. First thought when I'm thinking about the human experience is seeing these wonderfully written cover letters from candidates, and then you speak with them, and it's clear that they didn't write those cover letters. But it goes so much deeper than that. Can you maybe
Yeah.
explain and help us unpack this balance between artificial intelligence and human experience?
Sure. Look, I mean, what's happening, if you just take that as an example, we are gradually, or maybe exponentially, not just gradually, beginning to outsource a lot of basic human faculties, or human agency, which is, human beings are very emotional, and we're rational, but we're also emotional, and it shows in our behavioral pattern, the way we talk, the way we get excited about things, the way we write, et cetera, right? And then when you leverage something like a large language model, which probably the candidates are doing to write your letter or email and interaction, it's perfect, but it's not. It kind of loses that imperfection of humanity. The emotion, the maybe you were not on that particular day, the grammatical error, et cetera, right? So when you show up and you're having that actual human to human connection, you kind of lost your authenticity because you used whatever you used. And I'm using all sorts of AI tools, both on research and doing editing, and on my enterprise software space, et cetera. But I am very conscious of not losing my authenticity. So if you read any of the pieces I write or written or books, there's a human story, which is my authentic personal story that weaves into that thing, because that's who I am, right? I mean, our story is what makes us authentic and makes us uniquely us. So once you kind of master that, and you start creating digital twins and you start creating these personas, you're going to lose that. And you don't want to probably lose that, because you're now then creating a generic version of whatever out there, and your unique value proposition kind of get lost. By the way, that applies to individual, but that also applies to businesses, right? So if every business is doing exactly the same, then what would be the unique value proposition, or what would be the unique brand proposition that makes you stand out, right? So this is what we have to guard ourselves against if you're just talking about business, and as an individual, how we show up. in the world, right? And this outsourcing ourselves completely to these enabler machines, whatever you want to call it, is a danger that we have to kind of guard against and kind of be conscious of.
Yeah, and I think you wrote something. I want to say it was in Forbes. I may have the publication wrong, but you wrote something recently along these lines about the alignment of human values and the AI systems. And without that alignment, you create what you refer to as a philosophical emergency.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because it's like you become a generic product, right? So I mean, human beings are not supposed to be generic product. Where each one of us, although we have a lot of things in common in the sense that we all aspire to have we all aspire to have freedom. We all aspire to have happiness. We all aspire to maybe do some good for the planet, et cetera, and have a a fulfilling life, right? But like if you go to Maslow's hierarchy, I mean, once the basic thing is fulfilled, which is common among everybody, we all aspire to be our unique self, right? I mean, that's like the ultimately what makes us human. So the philosophical emergency is the fact that, well, if you want to, and and our each one of our unique journey is unique, and that's what makes us, you as Dave and me as Faisal. You cannot follow my journey, nor I can follow yours, right? That's uniquely, there are commonalities, but that's unique, right? So you don't want to kind of like say, okay, I'm now going to outsource what I write, I'm going to outsource what I do, I want to outsource what I think, I want to outsource how I drive, I want to outsource what I how I make a living. Then that unique story starts becoming generic. And this is the philosophical conundrum about authenticity and uniqueness, and how we define human being as a unique unique individual, unique DNA, and unique story, right? So
Yeah.
we I certainly don't want to give it up. Maybe other people do, but I don't want to give it up. But at the same time, you don't want to not use technology to make yourself a better version of yourself, both as an individual as well as an organization. And there's tons of opportunity that ahead of us that will build better businesses, better solution, et cetera, utilizing things like AI.
Yeah, and I will admit that I'm probably in the early stages of experimentation with AI, enough to be dangerous. But I found a couple of things. It has saved me a lot of time in helping to put together a workshop. It's been like
Hmm.
iterating with an expert, which is really phenomenal. But it also has the propensity to hallucinate. Like it insisted that
Yes,
I had a fourth book that I certainly haven't written yet. Um,
right.
we've got to continue as you talk about find the balance. And in the book, you talk about a framework for both individuals and governments, and they're the open and care. And where open and care are acronyms. And we could probably spend three different shows talking about just those pieces. But
Sure,
I wanted to offer you the opportunity to comment on what you want to really deliver to the audience here as it
sure.
pertains to those frameworks.
Sure. I mean, at a very fundamental level, it's turned out to be a nice acronym, and we were able to kind of expand that into a full blown framework with a lot of details and tentacles. But open stands for, you have to be radically open to opportunities, and the open allows you to outline, like O stands for outline, outlining your purpose and your opportunity, and then evaluate which of those opportunities has the highest impact, following various steps. Care stands for, you have to be you have to care about humanity, and in based on that basis, you have to put together a governance model or guardrail, technical, ethical, and management guardrail that allows you to kind of put you in the right step, and not just because you can doesn't mean you have to, and just because you can outsource yourself, whether you should or not shouldn't, right? So, and it also follows this model of uh, how does it impact profit, how does it impacts your product, how does it impacts the people and the planet, in terms of whatever you're trying to pursue. So it's a very purpose-driven framework to allow to guide you to create or explore what are the opportunities that you can explore, and but also it helps you to kind of put together that guardrail that allows you to look at your risk. So here, the first word C actually stands for catastrophize, so meaning what is the catastrophic scenario can you create overutilization of technology that you shouldn't probably pursue, right? And you have to come up with a kind of a portfolio, just like you have your financial portfolio. You come up with the opportunity portfolio, but you also come up with the risk portfolio, kind of that kind of balances. We talk about the middle path. Creates you that middle path so that you can take advantage, but also kind of keep you on the right track.
Yep. One of my early mentors used to proclaim that one of his superpowers was the ability to recognize patterns. And AI certainly gives us the ability to do that. Talk
Yeah.
about the pattern recognition aspect and the ability to actually take a moment and pause to make sure that the patterns are making sense.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is it comes boils down to data, right? I mean, we recognize patterns from data as human beings, but when you talk about AI and the computing power and the ability to churn through data and connecting the dot, this is what the secret sauce or the best value of AI, meaning that if you create a certain structure and you can load up that structure with a huge amount of data. You can use the computing power to give you the patterns that allows you to make better decisions. So, for example, when you're talking about hallucination, you're basically saying, "I am Dave. I have these books out, and I want to create a workshop. So, based on my books, I suggest a potential workshop." So, what it's doing is going out there, if it's a large language model, is going out there and say, okay, let me analyze all the best workshops out there with similar type of topic as Dave talks about. But based on Dave's work, here is a suggestive workshop outline, right? So, and it happens in like very quickly, right? I mean, less than a minute, it
Yeah.
churns it out. So all it's doing is basically connecting your content with pre-existing models and patterns and suggesting a model or a pattern that could be applicable for you. By the way, that you can use the same analogy for, let's say, I'm doing a medical research. I have these 50 patients that are suffering from XYZ. Where can I go to look for this similar pattern for similar kind of patient and suggest what kind of remedy I could have because there's an outbreak, right? So on and so forth. As a human being, if you had to do that, that's why it cuts down your time. You have to go to the reference library, maybe go on the internet, do it old-fashioned way, search, Google search. Oh, by the way, even the Google, I mean, use element of algorithm, right? So pull these things out. Here, what's different with the large language model is that it has a natural language interface where you're not really writing codes to do the query. You're just asking question, and it's returning the answer, right? So, and you can create small language model, which is basically a more of a control environment with your set of data, your set of definition. And I think if you talk about businesses, like the enterprise, the small language model is going to become more of a relevant business usage versus these large language models we are seeing, because large language model is also very expensive, right? Because it's expensive for the platform vendors, but it's also expensive for the end user. So this ability to recognize the pattern is the best thing AI brings to the table, because it allows us to cut down the time for analyzing the pattern, but also allows us to create something new and make decisions a lot faster than we would be able to do otherwise.
Thank you. Faisal, I'm going to read a little excerpt from the book. I may paraphrase here, and then I'm going to get to a question. But there's something that just struck me as kind of it's a critical theme. And you mentioned that's one of the themes that you come back to throughout the book, is that AI is the mirror to humanity. And that the large language models are trained on humanity's cultural output, and what they generate reflects the content of the training data. So, like all good mirrors, AI mirror shows us everything, reflecting back our bad sides as well as our good. And AI will become versions of what we are. So, if we don't want it to be evil, we had better learn to be good ourselves. But what does being good look like, and how can we achieve it? Then you say it would be insufferably arrogant of us to claim that we can offer definitive answer to these questions. And I understand that huge dilemma, but I thought maybe here's an opportunity for you to at least kick it around a little bit and maybe
Sure.
try to come up with some thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, let's say you live in East Coast like I do, and I want to use a hiring system. And let's say I'm training the hiring system, whereby I'm saying, okay, look, give me the people that are graduated from Ivy League, and they have 5 years of experience, and blah blah blah, right? So I just train my model to go do bring me candidates based on that criteria. Guess what I just did? I just it's not a question of good or bad. I just create a biased element by saying that only people who graduated from Ivy League with 5 years experience can do this job, and no other candidate would be qualified for that. It's not, so that's a bias, that's an inherent bias, right? So this inherent bias is what going is the reflection of humanity, because whether we like it or whether we want to admit it or not, we all have biases based on what we eat, where we grew up, the people we hang around with, where we went to school, et cetera, et cetera. And you don't even have to get into a political discussion about, is it racial, is it gender or age bias or anything like that. That's human nature, right? Because you get molded based on your environment, right? So the more people entering the data to build up the models with their particular bias, is going to reflect exactly that. So let's say if the people who are building the model all are from East Coast in US, then it's going to have a very US East Coast focus model and the data, right? Versus, let's say, somebody who's in Asia or somebody who's in West Coast or somebody who's in Europe, right? So this is the danger, because AI has no way of getting data aside from whatever we feed it, right? So whether that's a small language model or a large language model, look, you can take in I'll give you a very personal example where I was, because of my son's situation, I was looking for data for, a particular blood cancer type in his age group, and I couldn't find any because most of the models are built with people who are older and in, a particular ethnic group or whatnot, and so that data is not correct. Just like your example of the large language model telling you that, Dave, you have a fourth book which you haven't written, but it's just basically thinking that way because there is probably similar type of concept out there, and it's pulling it out there. So this is this is not a good or a evil example. It's just a example how our biases is shaping the data and the model which we're entering, and we have to be very conscious how how we are doing it, and collectively um, it will be whatever we put in there. So there's an argument that you can make that if all of us are using it, shouldn't AI be able to make a judgment call and give us a more of a neutral or holistic output? That remains to be seen, because as much as we like to believe that the models are being trained democratically, it's not, because we're not all creating the models. Most of us are users, right? There's a handful of people who are creating the models, and a handful of people who are also creating the platforms. So hence lies the dilemma. That's why we said, in the writing, that it would be arrogant of us to think that we can have an actual answer. But these are the questions that we should be all asking.
Yeah, they are great questions. And man, I sure hope that I can maintain faith in humanity, that this all ends well. Faisal, do you have a few more minutes to continue the
Yeah, sure.
conversation? Yeah,
Sure,
cool. Because
absolutely. Go ahead.
I'd like to go back and talk just a little bit about some of your other work, and highlight some things I think the audience might appreciate your thinking on. And going back to reinvent, you're talking about business
Yeah.
transformation.
Mhm.
That's a common buzzword I hear every day. Everybody's trying to do business transformation. So,
Yeah.
what are organizations doing during digital transformation? Maybe some things they can do better, some things they should be avoiding.
Yeah, look, I mean, I have been in the business of transformation my entire career. So I've seen the large, small government, domestic and foreign, organization going through transformation. And obviously, if you look at last 20, 25 years, most of the transformation or reinvention happens. A big element of it is technology, right? Because you want to reach out to your customer in a better way. You want to have a product that are accessible better, optimize supply chain, better market outreach with technology, et cetera, et cetera. But what a lot of people forget, there's a huge cultural and organizational element that goes in when you're doing transformation. So just because you bought a new CRM system or you bought a new supply chain system, transformation most of the time doesn't go very well because you haven't really thought through the process and the people and how it's going to impact the adoption and how it's going to impact the communication to inside the organization and outside of the organization. And a lot of time transformation and reinvention happen when a lot of organizations go through M&A process, which I've seen many times, and you're trying to create one holistic brand, but you acquire a bunch of different organizations, and going through that holistic M&A process and transforming it as one organization, it's very challenging. So in reinvent, I explore that like a three element of transformation, the leadership mindset, cultural change that organization has to go through, and then the architecting the technology and the business together so you can create a common value and common alignment between the business strategy and technology strategy and how it impacts processes.
Yeah, and the M&A example is really an interesting one because depending on where you get your data, I think it's between 75 and 90% of M&A
Yeah,
deals fail
falls.
to,
Yeah,
to
fails.
deliver the synergies, the one
Yeah,
plus one equals three aspect.
yeah. Yeah, and it often enough it gets boggled down, and there's even a great I mean there was the silo gets bigger. You have a lot of redundancy. Like I was very much involved with Pepsi's transformation, and when they bought all those brands, Aquafina and Quaker Oats, et cetera, along with their soda business. 6, 7 truck will show up in the same grocery store because these are really different companies, right? So they had to go through this whole, one Pepsi model to create a centralized distribution, centralized supply chain, centralized, governance process. And it takes a lot of time and effort to go through it. Just because you bought a company doesn't mean you're done. That's where the journey begins. And
Yeah.
getting the actual value out of that acquisition, it's not that easy. And you see this especially in the tech business, whereby a lot of time big tech will buy companies just to kill the competition, not necessarily leverage the innovation that was done inside that the acquisition candidate. So it's complicated. It's not as simple as a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, 100%. I want to talk to you a little bit about Survive to Thrive, about resilience, and want to get your thoughts on what entrepreneurs today can learn about resilience or any other suggestions you have for aspiring entrepreneurs.
It's funny you mentioned that because yesterday morning, I was asked by somebody that, what do you think all this stuff that's going on? And I said, you mean what? And then they said, well, look, there's looming economic crisis, there's geopolitical unrest, and you got AI. So I said, yeah, well, that's a trifecta for uncertainty. These are radical uncertainty, and we have to kind of survive. And so I wrote a piece, right after that conversation, and I published it on Psychology Today, exactly on this topic. And my argument is that there's always opportunity midst of chaos. It depends how we navigate through this process, right? So if you're a leader, you have to kind of be very honest and transparent in your communication, both threat and opportunity, and let the bring team come together to come up with the potential solution to navigate through these uncertain times, right? So that's number one. Number two is that, it's like, the steady hand. When there is storm, the ships that survives are where the captains are calm and steady. So just because crisis, panicking and making rash decision will not get you there, right? So that's the second part. And then there's a personal leadership trait whereby you have to practice the practice resiliency and mindful decision making, so that you can kind of make decision and be adaptive and kind of be at ease with the change, which reflects upon yourself but also on your team, right? So that book, by the way, I mean, I wrote a while back, and we interviewed a whole bunch of people, entrepreneurs and investors and executives and athletes, to learn how they deal with resiliency. So there's 27 lessons in that, and actually you can download the book. It's for free. It's PDF version. You can download it from my website. It's still a great applicable practices that you cannot get away, because it's very human. I mean, it's a very humanist story to be able to survive and to thrive in the midst of crisis.
Yeah, find the opportunity within the chaos. I like that. Faisal, thank you so much for joining us. Before we let you go, though, do tell the audience how they can find you, connect with you, get your books.
Sure. I mean, my website, faisalhoque.com, is probably the best way to get all the stuff that I produce. And, there's tons of stuff. Anybody can take it. There's there's nothing to be, you don't have to subscribe to anything or give me your email, buy anything. You just take whatever you want. And then, I post something every day on LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn. And the books are available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and other places. You can buy it in the form of hard copy or audio or ebook. And as I mentioned, the books are for charity, so you'll be also doing a little bit of good for people who suffers from cancer.
Yeah, you can do well and learn some things along the way. Really good stuff. Faisal, thank you so much for joining us today on Behind the Numbers. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
It's been my pleasure to have you. And I want to thank you out there in the audience for enjoying this program and following us along. Really do appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and a review and tell your friends about it. Until next time, I'm Dave Bookbinder, reminding you that the numbers tell the story, but the people bring it to life. Take care, everybody.